Right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome Emily Conchala, who's representing the Research Foundation today. And also we have Mike Frame, who is joining us by video. Is there anyone else on the phone at this point? I would ask that if any of the directors has a potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on today's agenda, that at this point they would please make the appropriate disclosure on the record, and then when we get to that agenda item, you would recuse yourself from any discussion and the vote with regard to the item. Does anyone have any potential conflicts today? Okay. Hearing none, then we will move to the minutes of the June 24th, 2019 meeting. So a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments to the minutes? At this point, we'll take a vote on the motion to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The minutes from the June 24th meeting are approved. We now move to the Audit Committee report. The first item of business from the Audit Committee is the engagement of an auditor. This time I've asked for a motion to approve the engagement of an auditor to audit FRMC's financial statements and also to review its tax filings.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. So by way of background, Section 5 of Article 7 of Fuller Road Management Corporation's bylaws provides that the financial records and accounts of the corporation shall be audited annually or at such other times as directed by the Board of Directors by a certified public accounting firm designated for the purpose by the Board of Directors. So Fuller Road Management Corporation seeks authorization to engage KPMG to audit its financial statements and to review its tax filings for the year ending June 30th, 2019. The tax filings include the IRS Form 990 and the New York Char 500. KPMG has performed the Fuller Road Management Corporation audit as well as reviewed its tax filings for over 10 years. Given KPMG's work on and familiarity with with Fuller Road Management Corporation's finances and tax filings as well, which cover the same time period, KPMG has the unique knowledge and ability to perform the needed review in a thorough as well as expeditious manner. Accordingly, FRMC seeks to engage KPMG based on a single source justification to conduct its audit and review its tax filings for the year ending June 30th, 2019. There is no increase in cost from the prior year in the base fee for the audit or in the fee for review of the tax filings. The Audit Committee met and approved a resolution approving the engagement of KPMG to audit FRMC's financial statements and review its tax filings for the year ending June 30th, 2019, and authorize the President and or acting Treasurer to take any and all actions necessary and appropriate to effectuate such action. And the Audit Committee recommended that the Board approve the foregoing actions. Are there any questions or comments about the Audit Committee's recommendation?
I just want to say I think this should be the last time to do sole source to KPMG. I mean, after 10 years, I think it's time to go out and see if other people are interested or what the market is.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, the requested action is the adoption of a resolution approving the engagement of KPMG to audit FRMC's financial statements and review its tax filings for the year ending June 30th, 2019, and authorizing the President and or acting Treasurer to take any and all actions necessary and appropriate to effectuate such action. So at this point, I would ask that we vote on the motion to authorize the engagement of KPMG. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The resolution is approved. We'll now move on to the Finance Committee report and take up resolution number 160, which is the FRMC annual plan. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 160 approving the annual plan?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. The bylaws of Fuller Road Management Corporation provide that there shall be submitted to the board by the president for its approval an annual plan which shall set forth all anticipated revenues and expenditures and indicate A, the current fiscal year, showing approved expenditure levels, including approved changes and estimated income and expenditures through the end of each period. B, the prior fiscal year, showing actual income and expenditures for such period. And C, the next ensuing fiscal year, showing estimated income and proposed expenditures for each. The 2019-2020 annual plan was submitted to the Finance Committee of Fuller Road Management Corporation upon the recommendation of management and finance staff, and upon a motion duly made, was approved by the Finance Committee with a recommendation that it be considered and approved by the full Board of Directors. So the requested action is the adoption of resolution number 160 to approve the annual plan for 2019-2020. This time I would open it up to questions and or comments. Questions or comments?
That's good.
So at this time, we'll vote on the motion to adopt resolution number 160. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Resolution number 160 is approved. We'll move on to an amendment to our food service agreement at this time. Is there a motion to consider an amendment to the food services agreement with Compass Group USA, Inc., known as Chartwells?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. So by way of background, Fuller Road Management Corporation and Chartwells entered into an agreement on May 1st, 2014, pursuant to which Chartwells had the exclusive right to provide food and catering services on the Albany Nanotech campus, with some limited exceptions, for a base period of 5 years, expiring on April 30th, 2019, with annual renewal options thereafter upon written agreement of both parties. In September 2018, the board approved an amendment to the agreement with modifications that included an extension of the contract through June 30th, 2019, to avoid any sudden corresponding interruption to the food services provided to the Albany campus population. FRMC issued an RFP for a food and catering services vendor in May, and to allow time for review of the responses and subsequent contract negotiations, the board approved an extension of Chartwell's services for an additional 2 months beyond the current expiration through August 31st, 2019, with operations limited to one cafe, and with FRMC compensating Chartwells for any actual losses incurred during this additional 2-month period. This ensured that tenants, employees, and visitors to the Albany Nanotech campus would have access to some food services during these summer months. In August, FRMC issued a new RFP with broader food service options, and to ensure time for selection of a new provider and contract negotiations, FRMC seeks to extend the contract with Chartwells for an additional month through September 30th, 2019. With FRMC compensating Chartwells for any actual losses as agreed to in the previous extension. Due to the need to finalize these arrangements with Chartwells before September, the Finance Committee approved extending the contract with Chartwells under these terms. At its subsequent meeting on September 9th, 2019, the Finance Committee approved a resolution that 1. Recommends the board approve the extension of the Chartwells contract under these terms. 2, authorizes the president and or acting treasurer to enter into a contract with Chartwells on the terms described above, and to negotiate and enter into a contract with a successful bidder on the new RFP for food services subject to ratification by the full board at its next meeting. 3, authorizes the president and or acting treasurer to take any and all actions necessary and appropriate to effectuate such actions. And 4, ratifies any and all actions previously taken with respect to the extension of the Chartwells contract. So the requested action of the board today is to adopt a resolution to do all of the things that I mentioned to ensure that there's continuing food services until the new contract is negotiated and signed by both parties. Do we have any comments or questions from the board members?
No.
You gotta eat.
People have to eat.
So at this time, I would ask for a vote on the motion to approve the resolution for an amendment to the contract with Chartwells. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? So that extension is approved. We will now move on to another lease amendment. This item deals with SEPQ. So is there a motion to consider an amendment to the lease with SEPQ?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. The SEPQ currently leases 1,165 square feet on the first floor of the NanoFab East building for a credit union branch office. Upon the expiration of its lease on October 11th, 2019, SEPQ seeks to reduce its space to 198 square feet to accommodate a transition from a branch office to video terminals. SEPQ is seeking a 10-year lease of the space with an option to renew for an additional 5 years. SEPQ will pay $44.06 per square foot, which is a 3% escalation over last year's rent, and rent will escalate by 3% each year on the anniversary date. The rent includes utilities and operating expenses, and SEPQ will pay for fit-up of the space to accommodate the video terminals. The proposed lease represents a small fraction of the total building. Therefore, an appraisal of the fair market value of the asset was not deemed to be practical. Staff has determined that the lease meets fair market value based on other existing leases on the Albany Nanotech campus at this time. The FRMC Finance Committee approved a resolution authorizing approval of the lease amendment with SEPQ under the terms described above and authorizing the president and/or acting treasurer, each of them without the other, to take such actions, including without limitation, to approve, sign, acknowledge, and deliver the amendment in such form as either of them may deem appropriate, as are necessary to effectuate the resolution. And the Finance Committee recommends that the board approve this same action. So at this time, are there any questions or comments? I would ask for a vote on the motion to approve the lease amendment with SEPQ. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Then the lease amendment with SEPQ is approved. And we have another lease amendment. This item is with regard to New York Wired LLC. Is there a motion to consider the amendment to the lease with New York Wired LLC?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Franklin. New York Wired LLC currently leases office space on the first floor of CSTEM. Consists of a 419 square foot office that it has occupied since September of 2013. Its lease expired on August 31st of 2019, and New York Wired LLC seeks an extension of this lease for 1 year. The tenant will pay $41.39 a square foot, including utilities plus parking, and this is a 3% increase from the previous year's rent. The proposed lease represents a small fraction of the total building, and therefore an appraisal of the fair market value of the asset was not deemed to be practical. Staff has determined that the lease meets fair market value based on other existing leases on the Albany Nanotech campus. The Finance Committee met and approved a resolution authorizing approval of a lease amendment with New York Wired LLC under the terms described above, and authorizing the president and the acting treasurer, each of them without the other, to take such actions, including without limitation, to approve, sign, acknowledge, and deliver the amendment in such form as either of them may deem appropriate, as are necessary to effectuate this resolution. And the Finance Committee recommends that the full board approve this same action. So at this time, if are there any questions or comments on the proposed lease extension? Then I would ask for a vote on the motion to approve the lease amendment with New York Wired LLC for an additional year. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Great. And the lease amendment with New York Wired LLC is approved. And I would move on to new business at this time. Do any of the board members have any new business they would like to bring up? I would entertain it at this time. Hearing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of our meeting. I would ask that if any member of the public would like to speak today, that the individual introduce him or herself and keep the comments to 2 minutes or less. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment today? Yes.
My name is John Decatur. I'm here today. About a year ago, it was mentioned that New York Creates was going to be developed. I've been following up for over a year, and I get nowhere on this. I'm just curious where that stands and why it's taking so long for it to be formed in regards to transparency that we were promised. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? And, our next meeting date is to be determined. Certainly we will keep everyone on the board posted, and that meeting date will be made publicly available as well. If there is no further business to discuss, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Thank you, Franklin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. The meeting is adjourned, and I thank everyone for their time this afternoon.